In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a tooltip where we have a dual color here. And as you can see here, it shows this. This is quite tricky and it's not always the best solution. There are other solutions that's probably more better, unless you want to have something like this where you expect the data to be very consistent. So let's start to look how to do this. So let's start to look how to have dual text color in the tooltip body in Chartjs. First thing what we need is we need to get the default or boiler template, which you can find on chartjs.com. Getting started, this specific link you can find as well in the description box. Once you're here, scroll down here and copy this chunk of code here. Copy this, and if you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this video here that explains it all. So I'm going to paste it all in there, and then I will cut out this item here, put it in the title, save this, and refresh. There we are. What I will do is I will maximize the size of this. So in this case, I'll say here 80%, save, refresh, there. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to work on the item itself, or at least at the color. And this is a real tricky item. And I've got this question from one of the viewers where we're saying that there's multiple items. And this is really tricky because what we can do here is very limited, because we have very limited space to play around with. So what I'm going to do is, in here, this item here, we will change this and we'll just say, for example, and that was the request here, was for example drive C or drive and number C. If I save this, refresh, there we are. So I'm going to get this kind of structure here, and maybe we can remove the colon here, doesn't matter. I'll leave it for now in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have a color from this point to here, and everything beyond will be a different color. So we're going to scroll down here, and then what we're going to do is here in the options, and after the skills we say comma plugins, and in the plugins we can say a tooltip, and the tooltip here allows us to control and do certain items. First thing what I want to do is I want to say the Y align top, and the reason for that is because later on we're going to color it, but we want to make sure that it is like this structure, top or bottom. Doesn't matter so much. So we have this align bottom, and if we do align button instead of top, what we will have is basically it will point here up. Basically, the reason why this is important for us is because this line here, or basically where this caret basically points, that is the center, and it will be later on important for the coloring. So once we did this in the tooltip, I'm going to say here enter, and then I'm going to say here callbacks. And then in the callbacks we're going to start using a few items. So let's say here in this case we have the callback. We want to focus on the color, so it will be the label text with capital T, color with capital C, and within here I'm going to say a context, and this context we will do a console log just to show you what's in here. If I say context, save, refresh, open developer tab, and right now you see the color is like a default color. It doesn't recognize it because we don't do any return value here. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What really matters is basically this. Well, let me refresh and then just zoom in here. We go in here, there we are. And you can see what we get. We get the chart here, we get the CTX, and what we also get here probably is what we need here is the scales. There we are, because we need the X and Y positioning, or more specifically the X positioning. Alright, so those are the most important ones. So what we're going to do is we're going to chart, and what I can do for that is an object destructuring. If you want to understand object destructuring, please check in the description box. I have a video about understanding object destructuring for Chartjs. So I'm going to say here this equals context, and then in here we can say here the chart, which is also in the context. And once we go deeper in the context, we have the CTX. That's the one we need. So we're going to say here, let's see if it's in the equal level. No, you can see this one is nested within the chart. So that will mean colon. Then I'm going to say here, CTX, comma. Let's see what we need more here. I guess we should have the scales as well, which is also nested within the chart, if I'm not mistaken. There you are. I'm going to say here, scales. And the scales, I want to break that down as well into an X and Y variable. So now we have those, and what we want to do now is start to basically create a gradient structure. So I'm going to say constant, let's say this gradient equals, and then what we're going to do here is I'm going to say CTX, because I need this one here, because CTX allows us to draw in the canvas. That's basically why I'm going to get this CTX here. Then I'm going to say a dot and then a command in the canvas, which is create linear gradient, and this here is basically on the X value, the Y value, the width, and the height. So those are the values we need. So our starting point will be just, I guess, here we can just make this 0, and you can play around with this. And this was a really tricky one for me as well. So you can play around with it to fine tune into your own liking. I'm going to make it as simple as possible, and from there on I'll just let it go, and then you can just continue on your own. So what I'm going to say here, we're going to say 0, and then the height will be 0 as well, and then say the width, and the width will be based on the data set that we're hovering on. So basically here what will happen is we want to have this center point here, or at least this line here starting here where the caret points on, and that is the X value, or specifically the X.get pixel for value, and the value will be, for example, 0. Later on we will loop through this, so don't worry, or not even loop through it. This can be done automatically with a special command. And then once we have this one, I'll just put it as well, the height will be 0 as well. So once we did this, what we can do here next is start to put in a gradient color. So I'm going to make it quite simple. I'm going to say here gradient dot add color stop with capital C and capital S, and then in here we're going to put in a percentage. So this is basically a percentage, how many percent it starts. So in this case 0%, and that would mean 0% will be the starting point here and starting point there. And then we're going to say here the color. In this case, let's make this white for now. And then we have another item. I'm going to grab that one and put this on 1, which would mean 100%, which is basically the other end of the spectrum. In this case, 100% would be this position here, which would mean from 0 all the way to here, or from 0 all the way to there, and 0, or depending on which tooltip we're hovering on later on, or which data point. So we have this here, and let's make this a color here. I'm just going to grab this color, put it in there. Maybe later on we can make this a unique color. Let's see. So if I do this here and then I say return, then what I want to do is I want to return the gradient constant variable. Save this, refresh, and then if I hover over it, as you can see here, alright, interesting, it shows me everything here, and probably because it starts at 0 and then moves on here. So what I want to do now is I want to play around with that, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say here white, and let's make this white 0.9, and then I want a instant transition. So it should not be a gradual transition but an instant transition. So I'm going to say this to this will be white, and afterwards we will make this color here, whatever this is, and this should be red. Refresh. Alright, so you can see here now we're getting a certain value, but of course it is not fully correct. So we have still some work to do here. So what I want to do here then is what we can do here is maybe change that. Let's say if we do here, I have to push this, because where it really stops is basically here, and that's supposed to be 99. Let's make this multiple 99s. Save, refresh. Alright, so you can see here now we get there, but you should have a few more pixels more, and that's basically this. And the reason why I don't do this solid 1, well, maybe this will work, let's see, but officially let's see if that works well. Apparently that works as well. That's even better. So then I can just say here maybe 5 or 6 pixels. So then what I'm going to do here, this value here, let's say plus, let's say 5 pixels. Save, refresh. As you can see here now, it starts to work on this point here, but if you look very carefully, not 100%. If I do 6 pixels, maybe let's say 7, we should be having everything covered. Alright, so now it works here, but it doesn't work here. So you might say, well, what about this point here? Well, good point. Let's start to look at that. So what I did here was basically this one here. This is solid 0. If I do a 1, what will happen is it will be referenced to this item. So here, this of course is basically what we're really saying. We start from 0 and then to this point here, this center point should be white, and then after it everything else will be red. and you can see here it's all be red. So we don't want that. We want this to be dynamic because it depends on which item we hover on. So let me just go to the console log of this. If I refresh this, let's open up the developer tab and let's hover over it. You will see here some interesting information. If I click on this, we get the data index number 4. This is basically the data point that we're hovering on. So let's grab this. And if I say like this, basically that's what we do here. If I save that, refresh, we should see here the index. Alright, or the data point index. So now that is clear. Then what I can do is I can copy this, put that in here, save, refresh. Alright, so now we have this, as you can see here. And then I notice here it starts to move a little bit. That is quite interesting. Although I would not, can I explain exactly why? Let's see here. Maybe because of the numbers here that we have moved it a little bit. Alright. So you can see here we probably have to increase a little bit of the numbers. I guess here we could do maybe 3 or 4 more pixels additional. So let's say plus 10 pixels, save, refresh. There we are. Alright. So you could do it more complicated, but this is, to be honest, a very, very complicated method. And I don't even recommend this too much because I know the question was with multiple lines. It's a real hard one. I would better recommend you to create a custom version of a tooltip instead of doing this kind of style with multiple items, because it will be very hard to get the exact pixel coordination of that. However, this is one of the options. And what we could do is, let's say we have this here, but let's grab the color of this. So how do we do the color? Let me show you. So we have here the chart, and then we have the scales here. Let's go to context again to see if we can get the data. So if I refresh here, open up this, hover on one. Let's say here we have the data set, and in the data set, apparently it grabs us, it gives us the color access already, which is quite nice. So I'm going to grab the border color, and how do we get there? From chart, data set, border color. So what I'm going to do here is say context dot chart dot data set dot border color, and then we need to have the index number. And how we get the index number? Well, basically this one here. If I do this here, save, refresh, then alright, interesting, the border color is not being recognized. So I'm probably missing something. Let me double check that. Save, refresh. Undefined, interesting. Chart. Alright, click on this. And what did I miss? This is border color. We are in the chart. Once we are in the chart, oh, I think it's not even necessary to be in the chart. Let me double check again. I guess I'm not paying attention here. Chart, this, alright. So what I want, I was going into this part here. That's not necessary. I just need to go into the data set and then border color. So let's say here dot data set dot border color, and then we need to get the index number, which should be data set dot data index. If I save that, refresh. Alright, we get the colors. Let's grab this, cut this out, put it in here. And we should now have a more dynamic coloring option. There we are. As you can see here, now the colors, let me just do this. You can see here now the colors change. You can see here there's like this animation that once we move, it has like a slightly moving motion, and after that it works nicely. So this is one of the options. Should you do this? To be honest, tricky. I don't recommend it. It's quite tricky. However, this is an option to consider. So if you enjoyed this video and maybe you want to do real customization, I'm going to recommend you this video preferred over compared to this one. This is fine for this basic design, but if you have a real customization for the tooltip, go for this one here, how to create a custom tooltip with the Canvas API in Chartjs. That's the one I would recommend instead.